why should we change our ways to satisfy your commission for a puny 78 million euro?
Well, if that is the estimate of the central bank of the economic worth of GSP Plus, then I'm certainly not going to go into detail and try to argue against that. That's their evaluation to make. It's not what the garment manufacturers, ceramic manufacturers tell me, and it's not. When you look at the export figures, which you mentioned yourself,
Yes.
and the growth of exports
Right.
since the GSP Plus concession was granted, that's not the story I see. But I certainly wouldn't presume to argue economics with a central bank governor.
Yeah, I mean, what he's saying is, look, like you said very correctly at the beginning, Ambassador, even though we may lose GSP Plus, we'll still have GSP.
Yes.
Right? So that calculation is, according to the central bank, the difference between GSP Plus and GSP. But there's another very important point that you were making just now, is how the exports have been growing. I mean, we shouldn't be looking back, we should be looking forward, particularly in times of recession, in times of difficulty. We are struggling, and our exchange rates are not very conducive to our exporters. We have high cost of production, so we need everything we can get. So I think it's a balance between how much of quote unquote impeachment of the sovereignty we are letting somebody else
Well, I think on the matter of sovereignty, I mean, we also should be clear. The European Union is not asking beneficiaries to GSP Plus to implement European laws, to adopt our conventions. These are commitments made by these countries, all 16 of them, to their own peoples and to the international community. There is no additional legislative burden beyond what is part of the 27 international conventions that are the basis for GSP Plus. There is not one iota of additional constraint on these countries, which have, within their own sovereignty, decided not only to ratify but to implement these conventions. So on that matter, there's sovereignty. I'm not sure that, well, I'm sure we wouldn't agree that commitments made to the international community exclude necessarily the 27 countries of the European Union. By the same token, the implementation of our laws, European laws, which are the responsibility of the European Commission, it is our sovereignty to not only implement, it's our responsibility to ensure that that implementation takes place. And we are responsible not only to the politicians, but also to the other European institutions and the European citizens who, if we failed in our duty and our application of these laws within our sovereignty, can take us to court through the European Court of Justice. So there are several sovereignties in play here.
Right, I understand. And also, the issue of human rights is no monopoly of the European Commission,
Not
or
at
the
all.
US, or anybody else. I mean, human rights are human rights. As long as humans exist, human rights will also exist. But what you're saying in the report is that the investigators found that human rights violations are, quote, widespread and systematic, unquote. I mean, that's terrible, that if that is the case. Now, let me, for instance, take an example. The whole ICCPR, the convention. Now, the government says by enacting that ICCPR Act to supplement the third chapter of the Constitution, that there is adequate recognition of civil and political rights in the national legislation. But the Commission finds otherwise. And now it talks about the right to life is just an example here. Right to life is not guaranteed as a fundamental right by the Constitution of Sri Lanka. I mean, that sounds totally strange, right? I mean, are we saying that it's not a fundamental right, the right to life? Just let me finish. But in a footnote, they do say that in the case Riani De Silva versus OIC of the Piliandal police station, that the Supreme Court ruled that it was implied, even though it is not there. So is it a matter of interpretation of our laws from your angle that you find issues of implementation that you seem to...
There are three elements you brought up. One is ratification and transposition. So ratification of the conventions, transposition into national law, but it's quite clear from the regulation as regards eligibility criteria is that effective implementation, the third step, is as if not more important. So we're talking about effective implementation. That's the first point. The second point is, and I'm not going to add, nor am I authorised to add anything more to the Commission report. The Commission report is there and it's available to all to read. So I don't want to go into interpretation of it. It says what it says. That's, we'll see from there. You say it's our view, but I really have to emphasize that at every stage of the process, and that's the third point, we have sought input and cooperation from the Sri Lankan authorities. There is only so much that we can do, and we offered at every stage the opportunity for the Sri Lankan authorities to make their view heard and for that view to influence the report.
Are you frustrated they haven't cooperated?
Frustration, no. I regret that cooperation wasn't forthcoming. I've stated, and I'm sure I'm repeating myself, but I've stated publicly that I thought it wasn't helpful.
We're running out of time. Ambassador, we have very little, time. This may or may not come through. I don't know. If it comes through, good. If it doesn't, well, what happens to our relations?
Well, our long-term relation is something which stretches back in the past and will stretch into the future. On the specific point of GSP+, our objective, and I can say that without fear of contradiction, our objective is to get to a state where Sri Lanka is clearly considered eligible for GSP+, and the concession is granted. And beyond GSP+, as the Sri Lankan economy develops and you move from a lower middle income country to a higher middle income country, that we have stronger and stronger commercial ties. But I would also like to add, and I think this is very important, last month I inaugurated what must be one of the biggest schools outside of the Western Province in Vakkerai, which at a cost of, I think it was 3 billion rupees,
right.
Direct grant from the European Commission. We have one of the biggest bilateral cooperation programs. We have cooperation programs in culture. We have cooperation programs with civil society. We have cultural programs. We have education programs. Every year there are Sri Lankan students who go to Europe under the Erasmus Mundus program to study for their masters. That GSP Plus is not the be-all and end-all of our relationship with Sri Lanka or the Sri Lankan people.
Let's hope for better times ahead.
Let's hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.